Fudu is a delinquent wannabe who is forced to assist into a school for gangsters. However, when he discovers that girls are allowed to use weapons to make the boys obedient, he has no other choice but to rizz them all up and crack them to show who's boss. In this school, girls are allowed to wield weapons and play vigilante, striking fear into the hearts of any boy that would break the rules. At the helm of affairs were a group of 5 called the Ruling Sword, who all happened to be katana-holding baddies. Just as Fudu walked in on the first day hoping to explore the plots of all the baddies he could find, the 5 Ruling Swords were immediately alerted, so Rin held a meeting to discuss how to deal with him, since he was a notorious degenerate eyesore to women. While Fudu was shocked to find armed girls patrolling the school like they were already onto him, the meeting continued inside. They reported how he was expelled from his previous school after he sent over 40 people to the hospital without using a weapon. On hearing this, all the elites became eager to fight him. However, that's when Ammu, who they referred to as the Empress, showed up and warned them about him, especially his magic bullet technique. At the same time, Fudu almost irrigated his pants when he was called out by a big-headed boy dressed like a drag queen. However, Masuko then explained that guys were expected to dress like sissies and fall in line with the authorities, but Fudu made it clear he needed all the freedom he could get. A few minutes later, he buzzed out of the staff room even when they weren't done with him, after which he eagerly walked to the class. When he walked in, he was faced with a bunch of weapons from his female classmates who got him into a corner, and their leader, who wore an Oni mask, introduced herself as Rin and briefed him on the school's rules. They then explained how after their only girls' school was made into a mixed school, the guys went all Sues with the girls, resulting in the girls picking up arms to put the delinquents in their place. This could happen thanks to the 5 supreme swords that arose and turned things around by forcing gigachads into baddies, and with time, it became a place to traumatize stubborn boys instead of sending them to juvie. Despite Rin's explanation, Fudu looked at the plus-sized Buddha staring at him and knew he wasn't going to give them his balls to play like ping pong, like the other guys did. He claimed they were just bullies that wanted to stick their swords in his behind, and since he wasn't planning on coexisting, the other option was war. On hearing this, Rin wondered if he was just slow or he actually thought he could defeat them unarmed, and that's when Fudo Flash stepped out of their way before getting a good view of one of their seals. He then climbed the window while telling the class he would be back after homeroom, and even said the color of the pink Lolis plot before dipping. As he ran towards the gate, Rin chased after him and told him it was against the school rules for him to leave school grounds without gaining permission from the 5 supreme swords. She then attacked him, but his new tie bore the brunt of it, after which he weaved a bunch of their attacks and used his shoe to parry her sword strikes. This made her praise him for his sharp reflexes and good eyes, and noted he trained to get to such a level. However, Fudu only wanted to talk things out, but she continued taking her swings at him while using different sword styles. He even tried rizzing her up by complimenting how she could swing her sword despite how crayfish arms, but she paid him no mind as she was using a technique that used force breathing to boost one's energy. This back and forth went on for a while, but after ruining his new uniform and using a secret technique to cut him in the cheek, Fudu was so impressed that he wore his special gloves and used them to parry her strikes head on. While he parried all her strikes easily, the other elites who watched their bouts were surprised at how long Fudu could hold his ground against her. Unfortunately for him, he tripped, allowing her to drive him into a corner where she showered him with heavy attacks. As the exchange continued, he realized she needed a break to breathe before changing her strikes, and this allowed him to block her move just in time before unleashing his magic bullet, which sent her rolling on the floor like a ragdoll. The outcome shocked everyone, and as Rin struggled to catch her breath, Fudu pinned her after hearing her mention the name of his technique. He then asked her who told her about it, but they were interrupted when Nono rushed in and hit him on the head. As a result, she made him steal Rin's first time away, and by the time they realized what had happened, Fudu immediately backed off while Rin became an angry bird who then vowed to cut off his family jewels. The following day, while Nono prepared for school, another member of the 5 swords named Mary showed up and informed her she would take on Fudu since Rin had failed at it. Immediately, Choka, her beloved right assistant, interrupted and said she would go in her stead. Nono refused her help and told her to buzz off, causing the 2 psychos to go at it, but Mary seized control of the situation. Meanwhile, at the boys' dorm where Fudu and Masuko were taking their bath, Masuko informed him that the only way to gain the permission slip is to get a stamp from each of the 5 swords. That seemed like an impossible task, especially when the girl's impression of him was rock bottom. Meanwhile, Fudu already had other ideas, so he asked Masuko, who was a smuggler, for a box of cakes. The next day, when Fudo got to his class, the girls warily watched him and covered their lips to prevent him from snatching away their first time. He looked around and saw that Rin wasn't around, but soon learned that she was at the dorm and quickly excused himself. At the dorm, Rin stayed in bed sick and blamed Fudu for not only kissing her, but also giving her a cold. She angrily called him several names that could get the channel flagged. Her condition made it hard for her to think straight, but as soon as she sent someone at the door, she took her stance to draw her blade. All of a sudden, Fudu called out to her from the window and she immediately tried to attack him, but he stopped her, reminding her how it would end. He casually invaded her privacy and called himself a lucky guy for scoring points with such a cutie. He then asked her for a permission slip to go outside, but she told him it was only given to people of good morals and not hooligans like him. After pouring out her mind, she noticed his sharp gaze and thought he must be mad at her, but Fudu simply said he could imagine her holding hands with him outside the school. On hearing this, Rin immediately flipped and agreed to stamp his slip, so he thanked her and asked if he could make it up to her by offering her a free service.
What do you mean by that?
The thought of Fudu asserting dominance made her lose consciousness, and as she fell, Fudu quickly grabbed her. Just then, Nono entered the room and freaked out seeing him with Rin again. She immediately activated the trap system and vowed to end him. Fudu quickly bolted out of the dorm, but unfortunately for him, Choka saw him and decided to team up with Nono, or so it seemed. The girls wanted a piece of him to themselves and didn't want to share, so they quarreled while trying to take him down. The other students watched them and wondered what was going on. At one point, while attacking, Fudu tossed Nono and she ended up in an entanglement. He then used his magic bullet to send her crashing into Choka. With their cakes exposed, he walked like a villain, grinning about how he was going to exploit their loopholes, but Nono immediately jumped the gun and started crying, while Choka followed suit, which made everyone watching call Fudu a scumbag. Sattorii, who witnessed the girl's downfall, revealed her sharp vision couldn't see through Fudu's technique. She eagerly waited for Mary to avenge Choka. Later that evening, while going home, Fudu ran into Rin, who showed him his permission slip. He happily thanked her and told her he hoped to feel her plots the next day. After he left, some girls reported to her how Fudu had publicly filmed Choka and Nono's nether regions, causing her blood to boil so much that she collapsed due to fever. The next day, when Fudu entered his class, he saw Rin glaring at him and the other students. Creeped out, Rin then declared that she would be supervising him from that moment onwards. Later that night, Choka rushed to Mary like a tree hugger and Mary scolded her. Once Mary found out about Rin placing Fudu under her supervision, she deemed it unacceptable. Rin, on the other hand, learned the truth from Nono and vowed not to let Fudu trample on the other members of the Five Swords. That same night at the boys' dorm, the detestable scum feasted his eyes on some adult magazines without a care in the world about his situation. Masuko enlightened him that he had angered Mary, another member of the Five Swords who was a lot more cruel than Rin, and with both of them on his case, his situation was dire. Fudu couldn't care less as he asked Masuko based on what he learned from the girls about someone higher than them, and Masuko called her the school empress. He called her a deviant who didn't get along with anyone and attacked the elites with a karate chop as if her hands were a blade. The description rang a bell in Fudu's head, since he recalled losing to such a person. Very early the following morning, Rin yelled at Fudu like his mom to get out of the dorm, and she inspected his bags for contrabands. Disappointed that he wasn't as finished as she thought, Rin told him she would follow him everywhere he went, even offering to cool his little Johnny down if he'll be on best behavior. Unfortunately, Mary heard her and pointed fingers at them both. She was disappointed at Rin for choosing to help him goon, despite how he used his sea lion on their assistants. Rin quickly dispelled the rumor and defended Fudu like a mother hen, but Mary wasn't going to back down, so she got heated up till she lost a grip of her language and switched to protect the channel from getting demonetized. She believed Rin was infatuated with Fudu's lightsaber after her first time with him, and they must have a connection since he snuck into the dorm just to see her. Seeing how adamant Mary was, Rin declared that Fudu was her property and she wasn't going to let anyone have him. She signaled to Fudu to head to class while she talked things out with the blonde psycho. Mary realized Rin was far too gone to be reasoned with, so she brought out her rapier to knock some senses into her. Rin also wasn't going to back down either, and as the girls clashed, Choka went after Fudu to try whipping him till he called her mommy. He immediately told her he didn't swing that way and caught her whip while waffling about how he had rendered her powerless. To his surprise, she collapsed, and then he realized he had scared her with his magnum. He quickly adjusted his pants and blamed Rin for hurrying him that morning, but then saw Amu standing not too far off. He almost had an identity crisis as he wondered if the guy he always knew was a girl. Amu then affirmed that she was always a female, but Fudu decided the best way to test it out was with his fist. As he dashed towards her, Mary, who had dropped Rin outside his dorm, had caught up with him, so she yelled after seeing his monster truck and nearly lost her voice. She then noticed Choka and rushed to the poor girl, who was lost in trance as the vain snickers refused to leave her mind. By the time Fudu looked back, Amu had vanished. Suddenly, he sensed an ominous aura from behind him and saw Mary, who held her Japanese dictionary as she struggled to convey how she wanted to render his sausage useless. Meanwhile, Amu, who was already inside, recalled her previous encounter with Fudu, how he sent dozens of no-names flying apart like fireworks. Back then, she demanded once again that he be her subordinate, but Fudu tried to silence her with a punch. To his surprise, she caught his fist and drilled holes into him with her fingers before slashing him down. Before he collapsed, she asked him once more to be her subordinate, but he simply placed his fist on her to fire his spirit bullet. She also attacked him with a perfect strike that would make him fall for her, but she wondered why she didn't swiftly take him down on that day. Her heart ached whenever she thought of Fudu's longsword, and she wondered if it was what you all thought it was. She changed her mind and cracked a Buddha statue while vowing not to give Fudu any recognition. She vowed to end him the next time she laid her eyes on him. Meanwhile, Tsukuyo heard how Mary attacked Fudu with her superior fencing skills. He evaded some of her piercing attacks while some hit home. His major issue was that he didn't know much about Western swordplay. Mary ended up nicking and puncturing him in a lot of places. Her goal wasn't to finish him in a grandiose format, but to make him bleed out till he gradually lost his strength. Rin had struggled her way back to the school grounds, and she couldn't see Fudo, so she asked the sprawled Choka where they were. And after a lot of deliberation, she realized where Choka meant, or so she thought. Tsukuyo keenly listened and could tell Mary's endgame. Mary aimed at Fudo's nerves, and her long-range game made it difficult for him to close the distance between them to land a finisher. Rin, on the other hand, wandered off in the wrong direction as she looked for them. Fudo had almost exhausted his strength, decided to gamble on luck by charging straight at Mary like a raging bull. Left with no choice, she thrusted her rapier at his abdomen to take him down, but to her surprise, he revealed she struck an adult magazine which he had kept there when Rin searched his bag earlier. Mary quickly distanced herself again, believing he couldn't reach her, but unfortunately for her, his reach had extended even though it was just a little thanks to the magazine. In that instant, he placed his palm on her and fired a magic bullet, throwing her off. He thanked his stars for carrying the magazine with him and ignored her rants as she talked about how embarrassing she felt to be schooled by such a deviant. She then jumped the gun, believing he was going to go further with her than he went with Rin, but Fudo crashed her fanfic fantasies. She got pissed and assumed he considered Rin more attractive, which meant that she was the least among the girls he had encounters with. Her sense of morality switched, so she gave him the green card to cop a feel, but to her surprise, he rejected her offer. She immediately assumed he loved girls who would call him their big brother, but he disagreed again, saying he loved heavy duties but didn't like being forced into doing it. At that point, she gave up, but when she heard him mention something about a permission slip, she instantly put the stamp between her milkers and asked him to get it. Fudo nearly pounced on her, and he used all the willpower he could conjure to stop himself from getting sued for harassment. At that point, she admitted defeat after realizing not all men acted like apes. Fudo suddenly experienced a deja vu whereby he senses someone threatening right behind him. This time around, it was Rin who misunderstood the situation and attacked him for it. A while later, Mary cleared the air and then promised to stamp Fudo's seal on the condition that he take responsibility. She declared she would join Rin in supervising his behavior from that moment, and Fudo knew his life was going to be more hectic than it already was. Days later, on the rooftop during lunch break, the girls haggled over who should supervise Fudo like buyers in a trade fair, till the point that he questioned if they were carrying out their duties. They kept on bickering, so he casually informed them that they were flashing him. By that time, the third member of the Five Swords, Warabi, had returned from her trip to Hawaii, and she noticed Rin and Mary chasing after Fudo. She concluded she would have to intervene, and when she got to the office, she hosted a council meeting, but only Sattorii was present. Based on what she could gather so far, she could tell Mary and Rin had befriended Fudo, whom they were supposed to correct, so she added them to the correction list. She proposed the idea to Sattorii, and Sattorii indirectly gave her support. Warabi told her to look forward to how she would discipline her targets. Meanwhile, Tsukuyo missed the council meeting because she was stuck in a queue to get bread during lunch break. Warabi then met with her underlings and instructed them to hold the legendary Festival of Blood. During PE, Fudo spotted Masuko tied to the school flagpole like a criminal and offered to get him out, but Rin and Mary stopped him. They tell him they could sense something was wrong. Immediately, a generic laughter rang throughout the school grounds, and they saw Warabi on the rooftop. She addressed them all, saying it was time to deal with people, truncating the peace of their academy, and for that reason, they would commence the Warabimpics, the Festival of Blood. Warabi then declared Fudo as the main target and said the only way to save Masuko was to clear through her countless challenges. If he could pull that off, she would give him her stamp for his permission slip. On hearing this, the disinterested fella immediately got riled up. Warabi simply snapped her fingers and her minions showed up. One of them showed her an official letter which had Warabi and Sattorii's stamp on it. Rin and Mary immediately called out to Warabi for getting the council to agree with her without their consent. But Warabi rebuked them, yelling at them for flirting with their target rather than correcting him like they should. The girls were embarrassed, and they started giving reasons why they had to supervise Fudo. But like Cat and Rat, they fought for who had the right to the delinquent's glizzy. Warabi became very pissed at them and immediately summoned a sumo ring. Fudo got excited as he imagined wrestling her in a sumo outfit, but Rin and Mary crashed his dream by telling him Warabi won't be facing him until the last round and he should be wary of her. They inform him of an incident where she damaged half of the whole school while trying to correct her target. All of a sudden, the minions tossed them their sumo belts and they saw Fudo pull down his pants to change into them, so they yell at him to wear the sumo belt over his clothes. From nowhere, Choka and No-No attacked the minions, but they got folded instantly, and thanks to Rin for stepping up, they would have been used as a form of stress relief. While all that went on, Fudo had properly put on his sumo belt, unlike his girls who had zero knowledge on how to wear it. When they saw him, they urged him to help them out. They went somewhere private, and Fudo took his sweet time with Rin, while he quickly finished with Mary like a speedrun. A while later, they returned, and Fudo quickly hopped on stage, ready to face the musketeers, but to his surprise, a friggin' bear showed up as his opponent. Warabi laughed at his reaction and told him to bear with it. She called the bear Kyo and said it was gentle, but After Fudu saw it bare its fangs, he nearly crapped himself. He then asked about the other minions, but it turned out one of them was a fraud, and Kyo was among Warabi's musketeers. Mary and Rin immediately protested because it was against the rules for them to fight a non-human. So, to make things fair, Warabi promised to let them all pass the round if any of them can take Kyo down. Fudu then realized it was why the others weren't putting on sumo belts, because the goal was to get his party tired right after the first round. Rin and Mary then offered to go against Kyo to help Fudu save his energy, but he shocked them by insisting he would face the bear. He took his stance and bragged about not losing ever since he hit puberty. They then waited for Warabi, who was drinking soda, to give the signal, and she told them to kick off as soon as the bottle hit the ground. As she emptied her bottle, Fudu noted that he wished he wasn't in such a crazy situation, but he wasn't the kind of guy to let a threat made with violence slide. As soon as the bottle hit the ground, Fudu charged at Kyo to tackle it. He pushed the bear close to the edge of the ring, but force wasn't enough to take it out. Warabi snickered at his effort, but his teammates knew what it meant for Fudu's hand to touch his opponent. He channeled his energy and fired the magic bullet on the bear, but it didn't push it off. Kyo then took a swipe at Fudu, but the latter dodged it and then used his left hand to fire another magic bullet. And they realized he was ambidextrous. The attack pissed Kyo, so it angrily swiped at Fudu again, but he dodged and hit the bear on the foot before appearing behind it to lift it off the ground. They were surprised to see a high schooler lift Kyo, who was far heavier than professional sumo wrestlers, and even warned him that he could get crushed if the bear fell on him. Still, Fudu stood his ground while holding Kyo from its sumo belt. He wanted to smash Warabi's pride to pieces for involving innocent Masuko. He riled the others up as they anticipated how he would pummel Kyo to the ground, but to their surprise, he dropped the bear. This was because the sumo belt was no longer firm, so he called out to the minions and thanked them for not doing a proper job in wearing the belt on the bear. The belt then dropped, and Fudu won the match thanks to his opponent's sumo belt unraveling. Mary and Rin rejoiced at first, but then tried to act tough, denying their feelings and saying they were only acting as a team with him because it was decided by the council. With that, the trio fist bumped, and Warabi fell off her grand podium out of shock. Luckily for her, her other underlings prevented her from being scraped off the pavement. She then ordered them to change and get inside before declaring to the others to switch into red pepper tower shift. Warabi then angrily drew out her weapon, saying, "Playtime was over, and it was time for war." After Kyo left the ring, Fudu realized that the minions had disappeared, so he wondered what was going on. Suddenly, Warabi announced the end of the festival and informed Fudu that she would be giving him his award, which was the stamp on his permission slip, and that would happen in the next 10 minutes. For him to get it, he would have to come to the rooftop for it, and the process would be broadcast on video. The school building was what Warabi referred to as her fortress, because she had deployed many of her subordinates to ambush Fudu as soon as he entered the building. Mary and Rin angrily took out the videographers who were zooming in on their cakes. They then informed Fudu that it's a trap, and there was no need for him to go into the building, but he insisted that he was invited, and he needed to do so to rescue his fugly roommate. Besides, if he chose to decline her invitation, he wouldn't be able to leave the school grounds, since he needed Warabi's stamp of approval. He then told the girls not to bother coming with him, but they reminded him that it was their job to supervise him. Since they still had some spare time, they decided to change into their uniforms. After Fudu had changed, he went to check on Mary and Rin, and he saw their forbidden fruits. He immediately experienced the law of equivalent exchange, so he tried making a run for it, but Choka and Nono caught him red-handed. They print their fingers on his face before telling him to inform their mistresses that they would be heading to the rooftop as well. After 10 minutes was up, Warabi opened her fortress for Fudu to plow through, but Nono and Choka charged in to handle the small fries. By that time, Rin and Mary were ready, so Fudu delivered their message. And they were worried, but Fudu told them to believe in their juniors. As Choka and Nono swept through the cannon fodders, they approached the musketeers. Fudu then pointed to an entrance which could lead directly to the rooftop, saying they simply had to blow it up. To their surprise, the door came flying, and Sattorii leapt out and told them she had her own plans and didn't like the way Warabi intended to play around. As she approached Fudu's party, they prepared to fight her, but Sattorii sheathed her sword and told them that the council decided only on the Warabimpics, which meant she was free to do as she liked. Fudu noticed Sattorii's facial expression and wondered if she was acting in good faith or not, especially since she declared she really hated him. Meanwhile, some group of masked girls released Masuko, and Warabi frowned at them, as she wondered why they chose that period to make their move. All of a sudden, Fudu stormed his way to the rooftop, saying he came to deliver something, which were Rin and Mary, who left the rest of the girls for Choka and Nono to handle. Warabi showed Fudu that Masuko had been released. He saw the masked girls and wondered who they were. The fact that Rin and Mary had followed Fudu to the rooftop was more than enough reason for Warabi to see they were captivated by his sausage. She asked them to explain themselves, and they stuttered like you all when trying to rizz up a baddie. Fudu had to interject by telling Warabi that he would ensure she and her minions put on the sumo belt. Kyo suddenly appeared from nowhere, and Warabi said she'd show them their horrible fighting style. Mary also heard the minions heading for the rooftop, so she left her team to handle the fodders. Rin insulted Warabi's fighting style because she believed she would leave all the hard work to the bear, but to her surprise, Fudu casually waltzed to Kaio and said everyone knew what a bear's weak points were. Unfortunately for him, he learned the hard way not to believe what he saw in the movies. Warabi then informed him that Kyo knew how to box. She controlled the bear's movement, and Fudu weaved its attacks, and with Kyo out of Rin's way, she charged at the puppeteer to attack her, but to her surprise, Warabi evaded her and wedged a blade in her shoulder. She then spoke high and mighty about how she wasn't weaker than Kyo. As for Mary, she prevented the musketeers from getting to the rooftop by using her fencing skills to push them back. Rin struggled with Warabi, who was very light on her feet, and used ninja techniques to parry and counter her. Fudu, on the other hand, countered Kyo by firing a magic bullet right under its arm, but the bear didn't back down, so it pressured Fudu into a corner. Mary, who thought she had won the musketeers, got the shock of her life when one of them threw bolts and screws at her at a very high speed, so she struggled to protect herself with her rapier but got injured in the process. This was contrary to what Rin had declared earlier about not being underestimated, so Warabi pointed it out and said she was simply doing her job, unlike Rin, who switched a total 180 from a hater to a side chick. Fudu then encouraged the girls, telling them it wasn't that deep and he hadn't thanked them yet for choosing to help him earlier. Encouraged by the power of friendship, the girls focused on their match. Warabi then yelled at Kyo to finish Fudu off, but the bear cautiously watched him, afraid of being struck one more time by his technique. Fudu then riled it up and faked it, so the bear quickly guarded. But the result left its face exposed, and it was the very opportunity Fudu had been waiting for, so he struck it with a powerful punch, sending it flying. At the same time, Mary shocked her ops by charging right at them in such an enclosed space, which was contrary to her fighting style. Warabi, who is the only one left, then attacked Rin, who also charged at her, and she got swatted in a single stroke. What helped Rin win the battle was she overcame her fear and took a step towards Warabi's blade while swinging hers, and Warabi instinctively dodged it, causing her to miss. Moments later, Choka and Nono arrived at the rooftop to help, but they realized their mistresses had finished the fight. They then thanked Fudu for his help, but they saw the vile scum holding sumo belts and asking for their help to wear it on the fallen girls. The way he phrased his statement made it sound like he wanted them to join in on the fun, else he would break the girls while at it. They all turned their blade towards him and chased him for being a degenerate. Following morning, Rin checked out her broken Oni mask and recalled when Fudu complimented her looks after seeing her without the mask on. Her reminiscent time was interrupted by Nono, who pried into her worries, and Rin asked if it was okay to leave her mask the way it was. The elated Nono agreed and suggested that it looked better that way. Meanwhile, Mary sprayed some perfume and asked Choka about her looks for some extra validation. The happy-go-lucky human drill praised her by calling her the most beautiful girl in the school, which gave Mary the assurance she needed before they headed out. Now at school, Mary and Rin watched in disbelief as the other girls fawned over Fudu like monkeys in heat. They acknowledged his efforts back when he fought a large bear. This pissed them off, seeing that the others wanted to share Fudu's premium sausage. The fascinated girls continued staring at Fudu during class hours like he was a pop star, but the laid-back dude just wanted to take a nap. Rin noticed him slacking off and quickly kicked the sleep out of him, which got the others confused. Afterwards, Mary noticed Fudu fangirls in the hallway and immediately sent them to their classes. The case only got worse as more fangirls gathered to cheer on their crush while he walked to the vending machine to get a drink. Mary and Rin wondered why the girls were obsessed with Fudu, and he walked right past them. They stopped him to know his destination, and he informed them about his lunch plans. The duo joined him to have lunch, but the ominous aura around them made him lose his appetite. He brought it up, but the antisocial ladies reminded him about the benefit of their presence, which kept the fangirls from crowding him. He validated their claims and noticed a stalker as he talked about his recent popularity, but Rin cautioned his arrogance. Unfortunately, the clueless dunce commented on the weird expression they made all the time, and received the beating of a lifetime. After school hours, they told Fudu they would come for him the following day, and he left. After he had gone, the ladies were disappointed with him for not noticing their change of clothes and perfume. Warabi, who happened to watch their strange behavior, came out of hiding and tried to make some sense out of the situation, but concluded it was their time of the month. Later that night, Rin and Mary complained about Fudu while having dinner, and just then they argued about how they both gave him their stamps. Mary then suggested they take his case to the next level, and Rin tried to protest against it but stopped to wonder if it was the solution. Fudu, on the other hand, felt a chill down his spine out of nowhere as they talked about him, and the plus-sized crossdresser Masuko asked about it. Fudu said what he felt, and the stalker in the shadows stealthily retreated. Masuko wondered what had gotten him so tired, so he switched off the lights. A few seconds later, the lazy dolt had a wet dream. Very early the following morning, Fudu waited for Mary and Rin at a rendezvous point on the way to school, but the girls asked for his ulterior motive instead, because his behavior that morning was out of the ordinary. He talked about his amazing night's rest, and to their surprise, he asked why Rin had changed back to her old outfit and why Mary no longer used the perfume she used yesterday. They were shocked that he actually paid attention, so they clumsily asked him to strip while they examined his sausage. While he prepared himself to go down with it, they discovered a photo of him getting rough in the sheets with Sattorii. They got so pissed for not inviting them and demanded an explanation. As Fudu told them to hear him out, the girls knew he had no way out of this one, so they took out their weapons to deal with the scumbag. He quickly made a JoJo reference while wondering how his freaky picture with Sattorii leaked. He ran face first into Kyo and Warabi, who told him not to run in the hallway. He tried making some excuses to leave before his nemesis arrived, so she suppressed him with the ferocious beast she was riding on. They saw only Warabi and Kyo in the hallway, so they left looking for the bum. Right after they left, Fudu came out of hiding and thanked Kyo for his divine protection. Warabi noted that the dumb-looking mutt had already fallen for his Rizz. She then asked about his situation and laughed after listening to his absurd story. Warabi noted that the other girls were naive, but Fudu, who didn't think it was a laughing matter, wondered why Sattorii would do such a thing. Warabi then explained the instigator intended to destroy his relationship with the other girls before she made her move. Just then, it jogged his memory that his lightsaber wasn't up or at half blast when Sattorii came onto him. He showed her the censoring light in the image and suggested getting the original picture as proof. Later that night, Mary and Rin tortured Fudu like medieval inquisitors and demanded answers related to the freaky image. They tied him up and suspended him upside down while Choka and Nono held the ropes and cheered them on. They discovered an absurd amount of scars on his back after doing a number on him and decided to stop the punishment. Shortly after they left, Warabi came over with some food and commented on his ridiculous state. She recalled when he explained the plan and how she decided to be his accomplice before ratting him out to the girls earlier that day. She helped him up, but he refused further help to protect his shattered ego while Kyo licked him up like he was a popsicle stick. His partner in crime then gave him information on Sattorii's room, and they proceeded to investigate her room. Fudu started sniffing her property like most of you would, but Warabi slapped the gross behavior out of him and called him to order, noting that he needed to touch some grass. Kyo tried to pick up its scent, but their search was futile. Warabi guessed that it might be with one of the masked girls, and Fudu stated that they couldn't search all their rooms. They left the room, and Fudu stepped on a booby trap in the hallway, but he luckily dodged it in the nick of time. She reminded him about the upgraded security level there, but soon noticed two girls approaching them. Kaio quickly shielded him with her large body, and Warabi greeted the girls as they walked past them. Unfortunately, Kyo's legs gave out after Fudu unintentionally copped a feel, and he nearly lost his life and got exposed, but Warabi luckily saved the day, at the expense of giving him a good whiff of her dump truck. He made a funny noise which drew the girls' attention, but they spotted a cute little bear in the hallway, so they chased after it. Seconds later, they arrived at a safe area, and Warabi threatened the lucky loser for the slip-up earlier, but he established that he wasn't totally at fault. But at that moment, the large bear triggered another trap, which sent a large log of wood being shot at them. Fudu immediately parried it like Ken from Street Fighter. Then he used the "Are you alright" approach to Orphan. His Rizz hit the female so hard that Mama Bear wanted to give Domo another sibling. As they continued, they checked the girls' locker room, but it was fruitless. And just then, Warabi noticed that Sattorii's sword was missing. Immediately, a masked girl entered like a zombie, and Warabi guessed that it was Misogi, who was Sattorii's trusted aide. Fudu wondered what she intended to use a bamboo stick for, but she swiftly shot a dart at the dunce. Warabi quickly took in the attack with her hand and scolded the dolt for dropping his guard. Just then, Sattorii came out of the bathroom, with her milkers and cakes all bare, but she held her katana. Like a robot, she talked without emotions about their unbelievable matchup. The dilemma continued, and Fudu wondered why she had her sword after bathing, but noticed the cute pouch hanging around her neck. Just then, he remembered everything that had happened. Misogi then tried a sneak attack, but Fudu effortlessly caught the needle like an aura farmer desperately trying to get the crowd to cheer for him. He called her a stalker, and narrated how he felt that he was being watched and then accused Sattorii of dragging her into their mess. Sattorii then revealed she got access into his room, thanks to his pudgy friend, Masuko. The dots connected immediately, and Fuduo recalled how he woke up that night and saw her trying to ride him like a rodeo, but she couldn't get it up. Misogi then took their photos, and before Fudu could resist, Sattorii had slipped a sleeping pill into his mouth with a kiss. Back at the bathroom, Fudu realized Sattorii was aware of their plans after she revealed that the original image was in her pouch. While all these went on, Mary drank fruit wine while lamenting about Fudu, like a housewife whose husband was a deadbeat. Choka, on the other hand, played the role of a hostess who simply agreed to everything Mary said and poured her more glass. She then suggested that Fudu was after her body, and it triggered some of Mary's memories. Mary then remembered when he resisted squeezing her milkers and noted Fudu was never like that, so she flared up and decided to give him the benefit of doubt before chugging her wine. Coincidentally, Rin also was stressed from drinking barley tea, as she couldn't forgive Fudu for choosing a weirdo over her. Nono refilled her cup and validated her words just like Choka. Rin then asked what she thought of him, and she concluded that he was human trash for taking away her first time. When Masuko entered Fudu's room, he found Fudu's permission slip on the floor, so he took it. Back at the girls' bath, Fudu asked Sattorii for her ulterior motive, and she said she wanted to live off his child support. Warabi called her evil and declared that she won't get away with it. She picked Misogi as her opponent, while Sattorii called Fudu to the bath. Not wanting to fall for her scheme, he asked her to seal away her weapons, but she revealed she wanted to use them to her advantage. While staring at them, the nutjob's optimum reached its prime, but Warabi reminded him how expensive child support was and warned him not to take Sattorii lightly. Her vision got blurry and she realized that Misogi's darts were laced with sedatives. She stabbed herself to stay conscious, vowing to keep Fudu safe because Kyo's happiness was on the line. Being his first time in the girls' bathroom, Fudu feasted his eyes on the surroundings, so Sattorii claimed she had a question for him, before knocking him straight to the hot spring. She then asked how he wanted to leave the earth. He panicked because he couldn't read her attack, but then Sattorii realized that he had blocked her thrust, so she used a slash as a follow-up. Fudo tried evading but got cut in the cheek. At that moment, he noticed the pouch and tried to grab it, but she parried his hand and immediately went in for a stab, which he dodged, but the sword grazed his back. Sattorii acknowledged Fudo's evasive skills and wondered if he got so good at it by trying to escape responsibilities. He realized he was in a pickle and called her a monster because he couldn't predict her moveset, unlike Dark Souls bosses. The word sounded nostalgic, so she went down the memory lane, narrating how her parents were the first to ever call her that. As she charged at him, she said she didn't know what expression to make after being called that. She attacked him, but he fended her off and realized that she was sloppy. He went in for the counter, but soon found out that it was a trap, so he tried evading and got marked on his face. Warabi, on the other hand, practiced her sword swings and noticed how heavy her hands had gotten. Misogi fired a dart at her again, and her vision got worse, so she cut herself where the dart had hit her and took up a fighting pose while declaring that she would win like a popular white-haired anime character. Meanwhile, Fudu got hit again with another school's technique and concluded that she was a combination of several schools. He then recalled the things she said earlier and realized that she could use a single move from 10 schools' techniques. Sattorii acknowledged his observation and decided to reward him with a dangerous game. Coincidentally, Warabi struggled to keep up with her opponent until she lost her grip and finally lost her energy. Fudu, on the other hand, interacted with Sattorii and noticed how eccentric she was, but as she attacked while claiming to use different schools' fighting style in a word chain, he noticed her sloppiness once more. So he banked on his lightsaber to save the day and immediately got rid of his inhibitors. She attacked him, but he easily parried and stopped her, noting that despite being a monster, she couldn't take her eyes off his magnum, which was why she was easy to read. As for Warabi, she closed in on Misogi and slammed her into the ground, right after Fudu's victory. She then grabbed Misogi's weapon and whacked the living daylight out of her. At that moment, Fudu told Sattorii to give up, but she threatened him with the evidence. Just then, he slapped the crap out of her without any regrets, but she asked why he was so upset with her. He ignored her words and claimed that it was because she made Rin cry, which she noted was a noble reason. She claimed that humans were interesting, but he reminded her that she was one too, and stated that she got mad after he called her a monster. The result got her pouting like a normal girl. Fudu woke up in the infirmary to Kyo glazing him like he was honey, and Sattorii gazing at him like he had something on his face. He saw he was covered in band-aids, but then the cold got to him and he realized they had been observing his sausage. After their previous fight, Fudu tried to help Sattorii out of the pool, but she dragged him in and hit him in the pool after sensing Tsukuyo approaching the bath. Tsukuyo had spotted Warabi lying unconscious, so she headed straight to the springs. Eva, who accompanied her, crashed out because of the chaotic situation, but Tsukuyo pointed out the people involved, so Eva examined the unconscious girls at her request and explained the solution to Warabi's condition. The extra NPCs in the room were ordered to move the girls to the infirmary. In the spring, Sattorii tried to trick Tsukuyo, saying she was alone in the bathroom. But before Tsukuyo left, she said she had no business with her, but the person she was protecting instead. After she had gone, Fudu immediately jumped out of the water to catch his breath, and he yelled at Sattorii for shoving her kitty on his face without a heads up. Sattorii then explained that she saved him from being turned into a sashimi by the strongest of the 5 swords. She established that he couldn't defeat her no matter what he did, but he ignored her warning and decided to go see her. Later that night, Rin jolted awake because she couldn't get Fudu's face out of her head and made up her mind to check up on him in the torture room. As she went there, she ran into Mary, who also had the same intentions. Girls being girls, lied to each other that they were heading to get a midnight snack. They got to the cafeteria and drank tea while casually discussing waiting for the other party to head to bed so they can go to the torture room. Just then, Choka and Nono entered the cafeteria and were surprised the girls weren't where they thought they'd be. They then joined them for tea, offering to return with the girls after they were done drinking. Rin and Mary realized their plans were bleak and made up some excuses to make them leave. Instantly, Rin thought up a plan to make Mary return to her room earlier and decided to increase the drinking rate. She chugged the tea and demanded more, but they turned it into a drinking contest. Moments later, they reached their limits. Sattorii entered the room and told them that Fudu was at the infirmary. Fudu asked if they carried him through the girls' dorm naked, and the happy-go-lucky wench affirmed. She then narrated the story they cooked up to him, but he was worried because people might not believe the story. Sattorii claimed that everyone believed it, but he wondered what he had forgotten. Eva, on the other hand, checked Tsukuyo's temperature in her room and asked why she had napped outside despite knowing how weak she was since childhood. Meanwhile, at the infirmary, Fudo wore his wrecked clothes and asked Sattorii about her injuries, but she played hard to get. He apologized for hurting her, but she claimed that he had other things to worry about because she had already told the girls how he not only did it with her in her dorm, but he showed up at their dorm to have a soak with her, which meant how he couldn't resist her charms. At that point, he knew he was done for and called her the devil's assistant. As if he had the worst gotcha pull in history, Sattorii told him he had a visitor and Rin walked in. He saw how furious Rin was and wished he had some seconds to spare to write a will. To his surprise, she apologized with an extreme 90-degree bow. The deceptive Sattorii teased him and left, while Rin apologized. Unfortunately, all her rehearsed lines flew out of her head the moment she saw his junkie. Seeing how quiet she was, he explained everything that had happened and claimed it was Sattorii's scheme, but Rin apologized again, and this time around was for his scar she saw while torturing him. She curiously asked him about it, but he told her not to worry about it. She kept apologizing and begged him to punish her so she could get some closure on the matter and accepted her offer. He then asked her to close her eyes and made some adjustments to her head's posture, but it made her delusions run wild. He then took off her mask and noticed that she was upset. She narrated how embarrassing it was to expose her face, so he asked why, and she opened up about her past. Back then, her dad left her to get some milk, so her mom got mad at her and called her ugly because her looks reminded her of him. It was why Rin put on a mask whenever she was near her, and from then on, it became her lifestyle. Rin asked it to be their little secret unknown to her that Warabi, who wanted to pee so badly, was listening in. Rin then recalled how her heart skipped when he complimented her face. He handed her the mask and revealed he initially planned to destroy but would want her to take things at her own pace. Fudo confirmed that Rin still loved her mom, despite what she did to her, and said he wished he could relate. He revealed he was an orphan who was picked up by an eccentric sword lover who beat the ways of the sword into him. Warabi's urge had increased, and despite Kyo's help with the bucket, it wasn't enough. Just then, Mary barged into the infirmary to apologize for what she did to Fudo, and offered him her milkers to use as a stress relief, but he rejected the offer. She wondered out loud if Rin had already worn him out so he couldn't get it up. This pissed Rin off, and she ended up wrestling the half-caste while Warabi suffered in silence in her little corner. Later that day, Fudo returned to his room, and Masuko welcomed, but he went straight to bed. Masuko tried having a light conversation with him, but he felt guilty for what he did. He tried to talk about it, but the hard-boiled Fudo would rather die than discuss his feelings with a queer, so he wrapped things up and ended everything on a good note. Masuko became happy and told Fudo he washed his pillowcase for him, which means he can have more private sessions with it. The next day, Fudo woke up from a dream of the past. Back then, he laid in his pool of blood half dead and at the mercy of Amo. She asked him to surrender, warning him it was his last chance, but he ignored her and attacked her with his last resort weapon, his spirit bullet. He woke up at the wrong side of the bed, wondering what came about that dream. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, two idiots sing as they enjoy their shower. One of them spotted something behind him, and when he looked back, they saw a flash movement like a horror movie. Suddenly, they saw a blonde with long hair peek at them, so they screamed like little girls and bolted out of the bathroom. While running down the hallway, they came across Masuko and reported seeing a monster in the bathroom. Fudo couldn't care less and made fun of them, but they tried harder to convince him. He said just the sight of them having their bath was more than enough to creep anyone out. They got offended and asked him what was up with him, so he told them he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. With that, he tried to get back to sleep, but unfortunately for him, Rin yelled from outside the dorm to get out and head to school with her. Masuko then handed him his permission slip before he left. The other boys realized he had only 2 tags left unstamped and praised him, believing he'll get it done in a few days, but Masuko doubted him, saying the last member wasn't a walk in the park. In school, Tsukuyo reported to the headmistress that the empress had left her room. Realizing that Amount was on the move, the headmistress thanked Tsukuyo and immediately announced that there wouldn't be class for the entire day to the staff and students. Meanwhile, Sattorii sang happily as she walked on the rooftop. Her mind went wild as she stared at her intimate picture with Fudo. Fudo met with Rin outside his dorm, who was already fuming because of how long it took him to get ready. He realized Mary wasn't with her, so he asked for her whereabouts, and Rin said Mary was busy at the female dorm because something had gone missing. At the dorm, Choka made a fuss when she heard Warabi's little bear was missing, which she felt wasn't true. She felt the little teddy might be having fun somewhere in the school. Warabi and some other female students continued their search but could not find it. Warabi, after contemplating, voices her mind and suspects Sattorii might have taken Domo knowing the little bear would be treated like a stuffed animal. She told the other girls they have to expand the search to the whole school compound, and they must find him before Sattorii. Mary later met up with Fudo and Rin. She briefed them that she was looking for a missing wig, which belonged to Choka. They were bewildered because wigs don't sprout legs and run off. As for Sattorii, she wondered what sort of problem she should cause. She then noticed Misogi, who said she had been looking for her. The search continued, and the girls regrouped after an unfruitful search. Warabi furiously exclaimed loudly where little Demo could be since they had checked everywhere. She also added that the wig had been slipping off a bit recently from Choka's head. They decided to keep it under wraps and not allow others to know that they misplaced the little bear. Fudu and Rin found Mary mumbling to herself, so they asked her if she had found the wig. Warabi appeared and Mary thanked her for helping her search for the item. Warabi was confused and urged her to quickly find what they were looking for before Mary owned it. She then asked Mary why she was earnestly helping her search for it, and that was when they realized something was off. Fudu then pointed out to them that they were looking for two different things. The girls immediately broke into an argument on which item should be prioritized over the other, but Fudu urged them to calm down and look for the items together. That was when he recalled what the clowns complained about earlier, so he put two and two together, and like Sherlock Holmes, he concluded he had solved the case. He went straight to his dorm where the losers had nothing to do but shower. They had assumed they were imagining things, but suddenly they noticed a glare, and when Fudu revealed he was the one, they threw items at him like they were girls and called him a lot of names that would get the channel flagged. Among all the items they tossed his way, a wig flew at him, and he caught it and happily confirmed his guess. He then returned it to the girls and was shocked to see Choka without it. When Choka saw the state of her wig, she realized it had gone through a lot of hardships. Since they had found the wig and the little bear, Rin urged them to head for their class, but Nono and Mary informed her that class had been cancelled for the day since the Empress Amu was missing. On hearing this, Fudu recalled Masuko warning him about this same person whom he had seen days ago. In the school building, one of the minions reported trying to unmask Masogi and her findings so far. Back on the rooftop, Masogi tried to tell Sattorii that she was in danger, but Sattorii smacked her face while telling her to calm down. Suddenly, the final boss approached them and talked trash about Sattorii. She then showed her the photo she took with Fudu and said she had provoked the wrong person. Amu roasted her non-stop, calling her a pitiful and lonesome troublemaker who had nothing to do with her time. At the same time, Warabi realized Amu had gone after Sattorii, so she climbed her bear and charged to the rooftop. Sattorii then excused herself and Amu stepped aside for her. Masogi could clearly tell it was a trap, and she tried to warn Sattorii, but it was already too late as Sattorii tried to stab Amu, but Amu automatically countered her with a thrust. She then tried to finish her off, but Masogi fired a dart at her, but it bounced off. Sattorii then used the chance to stab Amu once again, but she got folded and Masogi also received her share. Amu then tried to finish Sattorii off, but Masogi leapt in the way and used her body as a meat shield, receiving the attack for her. Amu tasted her blood and could tell that Masogi and Sattorii were siblings. Back then, Masogi revealed she was originally named Sattorii and loved to be on top, but when her sister pushed her off, she took not just her position and appearance, but also her name. The incident cost her the injury she had on her face, but despite how Sattorii had stolen everything away from her, Masogi told her she loved her, and passed out. Sattorii was unable to process what she meant and didn't know how to react, but the image of how she hurt Masogi when they were little overlapped, so she went into a frenzy and cried uncontrollably. Amu shut her trap up by stabbing her from behind. At that moment, Warabi had gotten to the rooftop and she saw Amu had finished off the sisters and prepared to fight her. Amu immediately used auto-counter to defeat Warabi and Kyo. As Warabi bled out, she wondered why her attack couldn't cut Amu. Meanwhile, Fudu and Masuko walk back to their dormitory. On the way, he noticed Tsukuyo and quickly approached her for the last stamp on his card, but Masuko nearly crapped himself as he warned Fudu to stay back. Fudu couldn't take no for an answer, but by the time he got close to Tsukuyo, he suddenly saw her sword on his neck. By the time he realized what had happened, Tsukuyo had sheathed her blade. Fudu was so terrified he tripped and fell like a klutz. He didn't realize when she drew and returned her blade, but she smiled at him and said he had died. She assured him that she didn't cut him and promised to stop her blade one more time since the headmistress had entrusted her with his case. She told Tsukuyo to allow 2 transgressions, but he had surpassed his limit like All Might would have wanted. The first was when he broke into the girls' dorm to see Rin, and the second was when he did something similar to see Sattorii. The last was ignoring her summon, which was the reason behind her cold. Fudu apologizes and she told him that he had reached her limit, unlike Eva, her attendant. Fudu asked for a timeout by asking her why a child like her was in charge of him to begin with. She answered calmly, stating there were many reasons, but the most important was that she was stronger than him. A butterfly flew past her and she cut it in 2 within a blink. Fudu immediately knew she was bad news, and he asked her why she would kill butterflies, since girls her age should love them unlike moths. Tsukuyo then said she couldn't tell them apart, and that was how he realized she was blind, and she affirmed that she could make up for it with her acute hearing. More importantly, she explained her cutting technique, and he admitted he could barely see it. Sensing that he could tell, she concluded that they were fellow students of the Sword Academy, except his skills with the blade were sloppy like her top game, which meant he either had a bad teacher or had been slacking off. Fudu laughed nervously, saying at least she was still able to tell he was a fellow student. Tsukuyo quickly pointed out her reason behind her deduction, which was because of the level of his burst of speed and reflexes, which was on a different level compared to others, showing he must have lived in that environment. On the rooftop, Warabi was shocked by how deeply Amu's hand had cut her. And as she watched, Amakyo launched another attack at Amu, but Amu parried it and slashed the bear with her hand. Warabi screamed and Fudu looked at the rooftop, while Tsukuyo waffled on about the sword techniques. The three stooges quickly attacked Amu to stop her from finishing Warabi off, but she auto-countered them, thrusting her fingers into the trio. Tsukuyo rambled on, but Fudu didn't have the attention span to keep up with her. So he asked her what was going on and she told him the empress was on a rampage. She said Amu was someone who never got along with anyone from the very moment she enrolled in the academy, but she always spoke of him so fondly. He was the total opposite of Amu because he easily befriended his opponents and never for once spoke of her. As Tsukuyo wasted more screen time, she realized Fudu had dashed towards the rooftop, so she got mad. As Fudu rushed to the rooftop, he heard another scream from Warabi, whom Amu had slashed at her eyes. The scream echoed throughout the school, and the other members of the Five Swords and their assistants came out, wondering what was happening. By the time Fudu got to the rooftop, he saw all of Amu's victims sprawled on the ground and then noticed Warabi was brutally injured. He got so mad at Amu that he yelled her name with so much hate. He rushed to Warabi, but she told him to help the others. Fudu then cried out for help and saw the headmistress right behind him. By that time, Amu had gotten out of the school building, and she approached Tsukuyo, whom she noticed was pissed at her. Amu then asked if she was concerned, but Tsukuyo said she wasn't friends with any of the victims, so Amu simply walked past her and told her to avert her eyes from what's coming next. The others had grouped and were ready to take Amu on, questioning her about the scream they heard. Amu simply told them she would recreate the scene for them with their bodies. Fudu was shocked by her presence and wondered who she was. She ordered him to step aside for her to examine Warabi's wounds, and after inspecting the injury, she concluded that Warabi would be able to see again after surgery. Fudu then asked how he could be of help, and she pointed downstairs, telling him to handle the cause while she managed everyone on the roof. He looked downstairs and saw Rin and Mary lunge at Amu at the same time, but she easily parried their attacks and countered them with her fingers, cutting them deeply. She called them wastes of screen time, and they've had their time for too long. The injured girls wondered why their attacks didn't work and compared Amu's feet to blades. Amu replied to them saying their naivety knew no bounds because the ultimate form of karate was training the entire body to be as hard as a single blade. She called it Takemikazuchi. Amu then walked towards Nono and Choka, who were trembling in fear, but to their surprise, Tsukuyo showed up and asked Nono if she was her friend. Nono found it hard to answer, but when she saw Tsukuyo's grip on her katana, she fearfully agreed. On hearing this, Tsukuyo smiled and vowed not to let Amu lay her hands on them. Amu smiled and admitted it was earlier than she had anticipated, so she said she was ready to find out which was superior, her ultimate form of karate or Tsukuyo's blade. Tsukuyo, with a smug smile, blabbered on about how the auto-counter technique worked, and how it was the ultimate form of training one's body into tanking and redirection. But she then asked Amu if the technique would work against her lightning-fast attack. Tsukuyo immediately got serious, and the temperature around her dropped as soon as she opened her eyes. Amu dared her to come at her, so Tsukuyo immediately shortened the distance between them and unleashed a quick draw, striking Amu 3 times at lightning speed. By the time Amu realized what had happened, she coughed out blood from the hit, but Tsukuyo also bled, which meant the auto-counter was successful. Amu revealed that Tsukuyo's katana had snapped while attacking, and if it had been a real blade, she wouldn't know how things would have turned out, unlike with the cheap fake metal sword she held. As they charged to attack, Fudu pushed Tsukuyo aside and yelled at Amu as he ran towards her. Amu, on the other hand, powered up like a Dragon Ball Z character and screamed his name. Her scream blared throughout the whole school and everyone knew something was wrong. Sometime back, Fudu met up with Amu for the first time in their former school. Not knowing she was a girl, he approached her and teased her for being too damn cute for a guy, and jokingly said he wanted to kiss her. She laughed at him and took up a stance before telling him to give it a shot, saying no one has ever succeeded. Fudu immediately vanished from her vision before appearing right behind her and draping his hand on her shoulder. She was stunned and hid him away. Then he laughed and introduced himself, saying it was his secret technique, which was a work in progress. He vowed to glaze her all over if she kept up with her unfriendly attitude, and she accepted his challenge. That was the moment she introduced herself and acknowledged him as a friend. A weakling named Kirasaki, whom Fudu helped earlier from being beaten, thanked him and offered to show him around the school, but Amu came like a jealous girlfriend and insisted to do that for him. Seeing how intimidated Kirasaki was, Fudu coyly rejected her offer and chose to hang out with him. Amu got pissed that Fudu rejected her for a nobody, and she instantly one-shotted the weakling. She then gave Fudu a word of warning, telling him to only associate himself with those who are worthy, and it was for her to decide. Fudu furiously attacked her, and it synced with the present, where he charged at her and smacked her on her cheek. She used her auto-counter to poke him in the gut, and he fell backwards. To their surprise, he got up unarmed and showed he had a magazine strapped under his uniform. It was his method of protection ever since their first battle. He cursed and accused her of pretending not to know him. She denied it, stating she was not that guy. Tsukuyo, who finally had the time, asked Fudu why he risked getting cut by butting in. After hearing his half-baked reply, she asked him if he helped her because they were friends. Fudu then broke her heart, saying they weren't friends and he didn't want to. He explained that one didn't need to ask each other for permission to be friends, and many mostly found themselves in such a bond. He then turned to Amu and said there were times when one would wish to be friends with others, but it didn't go that way. He called it a huge miscalculation, and Amu asked him why. He then asked if she needed eyes like Tsukuyo and she should take a good look around. He took a deep breath and yelled at Amu, saying he hated her, and he didn't understand why Amu was so violent and couldn't stand it. The feeling of rejection hit Amu so badly that she told Fudu he was going to see the pearly gates. Fudu stared at her and wondered if he could defeat her. He dropped the magazine and admitted he only had the magic bullet to use and realized the rest of the girls would be done for it. He lost to her. Rin noticed Fudu's worry and his confidence dwindling by the second, and wanted to cheer him up but couldn't find the words. She suddenly remembered how he encouraged her in the past when she fought Murabi. So she looked at Amu and saw the bruises left on her by Tsukuyo. She then recalled Amu advising them when Fudu first resumed to the school to be careful of his technique. Mary and Rin then shouted at Fudu not to lose faith and that his magic bullet would work on her. They noticed Fudu taking a sword stance and Tsukuyo analyzed his current technique, calling it the best to use for the Empress. Fudu then vowed to also use his other hand to fire the magic bullet. He rushed at her the moment she threatened to attack the others, and they exchanged blows for a while. He then used his footwork technique to get behind Amu, but she hit him in the gut with her elbow, saying that the same trick wouldn't work on her twice. She then tried to strike him, but she realized he had taken off his jacket. He moved in to attack her again, but she tossed the shirt on his face, blinding him. He immediately cursed as he knew he had been had, but Tsukuyo warned him about an overhead kick, so he quickly retreated. She then expressed her disappointment in his fighting resolve and judgments, which were clouded with fear and prevented him from going all out. She then promised to give him a free service if he took Amu down. She also told him that Amu had already mentioned her weakness. Hearing her out, he smiled and said she wanted him to die, but she told him when it was time for that, she herself would do the job. Fudu's confidence skyrocketed and he remembered the fun times he had in the academy. Like Nanami, he took off his tie and was ready to go into overtime. Amu watched him and wondered why he chose their side and not hers. She found it unbearable as her heart ached for him. To get rid of her emotions, she concluded that she had to take him out for good. That way, nobody would have him if she couldn't. If only things didn't go the way they went, maybe she would cast off her pride and admit she wanted to be with him, but it was already too late. Amu recalled when Rin and Mary fought for Fudu's glizzy, and her heart ached. She couldn't forget the pain he caused her during her very first time, and she was so weak she couldn't help him finish. She wished he could come for her, but she knew he was a person who wasn't ready to give in like her, so she vowed to take away his throbbing suffering for good. Presently in the school grounds, Amu ordered Fudu to come for her like a wild beast, and he said that's what he wanted to do. He then charged at her at a very high speed, and Tsukuyo admitted that he was a fellow student like her, but his technique was imperfect, which was why he wasn't good at totally concealing his presence. He appeared right in front of Amu and she slashed him, but Fudu placed his palm on her melons and fired his magic bullet. The technique sent her crashing into the nearest flower bed. It reminded her how he once struck her when they fought in their previous school. Back then, she got up right after the hit and saw him collapse due to exhaustion. She then prepared to land the finishing hit, but fearfully hesitated at the last moment. She wondered what sort of strange feeling she felt that day and rose to her feet. Everyone was shocked that she could take the hit head-on and continue fighting. Amu then told Fudu to knock her up with his best move, and he said he would but won't take responsibility. They charged at each other and exchanged heavy blows like cavemen. The headmistress contacted someone far away, informing her about Fudu and Amu, saying they were the ones poisoning the school. Back at the school grounds, Tsukuyo watched as Fudu and Amu gave up on defense and they kept on hitting themselves. Despite the pain, she wondered why they were laughing and theorized if that was what it meant to be friends. Amu, on the other hand, was in cloud 9 as she savored all of Fudu's hits. She acted like a Stockholm victim who wanted more. She wanted to be the only one he thought about and did things for. After landing an uppercut, Fudu nearly fell, but Rin yelled at him to win for her, so he got back up and landed his magic bullet. Amu also went for an auto counter which cut deep, but as he fell, she held him back up and placed her palm on his milkers, telling him to empty himself. She finally realized that she was deeply in love with him, and to love meant to lose, so she asked him to give it his all, but to her surprise, he said she should count him out. She fell to the ground and lost consciousness, and Tsukuyo immediately drew her blade at Fudu, asking if it was their turn to have a go at it. She bickered like a nagging wife about how sloppy he was with his thrusts, and then concluded she would be supervising him. Fudu wondered why she changed her mind because she said something about getting him punished, but she then explained that he ran off earlier without listening to the end of her explanation. She then told him it would benefit him since she would stamp his permission slip. The others who knew Fudu well concluded he would reject the offer, and despite the blade on his neck, Fudo rejected it, but he was interrupted by Sattorii's girls who wanted to finish Amu off. But by that time, The headmistress had gotten downstairs and she easily knocked out their weapons. She then ordered all of them to get lost apart from Fudu. She pointed at him and said she had expelled him. Later that day, Masuko was surprised when he heard that Fudu was expelled, but worst of all, Fudu calmly accepted his fate. He held his permission slip and noted he won't get yelled at by Rin anymore. Days later, Fudu showed up at the clinic to see Warabi and then bid her farewells. He then visited Sattorii and she asked him to leave because she didn't know the face to make for him. She then asked who she was and he called her his third side chick. She laughed and hoped to recreate their photos sometime. Misogi then entered the room after Fudu had left and tried calling Sattorii by her real name, but was scared. Sattorii then told her whichever was fine. At the headmistress' office, Rin and Mary tried to convince the headmistress that all Fudu action was to stop Amu's rampage, which was to preserve the peace of their academy. They fought for Fudu's expulsion sentence to be revoked, but the headmistress simply said their efforts were futile. Outside the school building, Fudu met Tsukuyo, who quietly waited for him. She asked why he had not answered her offer to teach him. He thanked her and told her it wasn't possible since he was going to leave like Amu. On hearing that Amu had packed her stuff and was at the airport, Fudu prepared to leave, but Tsukuyo told him he wasn't permitted until his expulsion paperwork was finalized. She then stamped his slip and told him to hurry up, calling him her pupil. He quickly took off and caught up to Amu, who was at the airport. She was surprised and tried acting tough, asking him why he came as if she wasn't waiting for him moments ago. He then told her he didn't expect her to leave. He showed off his permission slip fully stamped and asked her if she wanted to start a family with him, but told him to come back when he was responsible. He then asked her if she had anything she wanted to pass to the others, and she rushed to him before kissing him and pushing him away and declaring that he belonged to her. He got confused and asked her when was he her property, so she told him it was from the very moment they met. He returned to the academy and met Rin in casual clothes, which was a part of his wish list. Like a jealous housewife, she asked him where he went, so he told her he saw Amu off. He finally understood her and had no regrets watching her leave. He then asked Rin about his expulsion, and to their surprise, Mary showed up and informed him that the headmistress had revoked his expulsion. Back then, when the girls had confronted her, she made a joke about not being able to reverse her notion. Her condition was for them to tightly supervise him. Rin then drew her sword and told him to either cross-dress like other boys in the academy or pack his belongings and leave. He smiled at her and refused, saying he would do as he wanted. When he got to the school gate, he saw the students happily waiting for him. So he smiled and called the academy his beautiful place. We've come to the end of the video. Comment down your favorite waifu, and if you feel she is better than Amu, state why. As always, stay notified and get the latest recaps.